Good afternoon, everybody. Eddie Webb. We are here at the New Media Lab at Mesa Community College, and we have a fantastic podcast for you this afternoon from the Mesa Public School system. And I'm going to have everybody introduce yourself.
Hi there. My name is Dr. Tawn Hauptli, and I'm education faculty at Mesa Community College.
Hi, I'm Andi Fourlis, the Superintendent of Mesa Public Schools.
And I'm Marcie Hutchinson. I'm currently the President of the Mesa Public Schools Governing Board.
So our purpose today is to discuss our relationships with the Mesa school system and the projects that Tawn is heading up.
Absolutely. It's really just an exciting venture for me working with the school district and the things that they're doing to help develop quality teachers.
So our first question for our podcast people today, what are the powers and duties of a governing board?
Well, as the school board president, I'm more than happy to help you with that answer. Basically, what the school board does is we are the elected officials. We are those elected from our community, and our responsibility is to set the vision and the mission and the goals of the district. And so we have many duties and responsibilities that are established by state statute, and they would include approving and monitoring and reviewing the budget. So priorities are often established by how money is allocated, and that is done by the governing board. We also set policy, anything from the rights of students and employees to the disposition of property to graduation qualifications to the duties of our superintendent. We also establish the hiring and firing process for the district. We evaluate and approve academic plans, so curriculum is also under our jurisdiction. And the only employee that the governing board hires is the superintendent, and it is our responsibility to hire the superintendent, evaluate the superintendent, and to monitor the progress of the district through the superintendent. But I think one of the most important things that a governing board does is to represent the public and the public interest. And to do that, we must engage our public and our importance as a board to make sure our public is involved and is participating in the process of our public schools.
And how do you do that?
Well, that's really interesting. What we're trying to do is to make sure that we have meetings that are participatory, productive, civil, and informative. And to do that, we have been doing some new things in our district. We have teamed with the National Civic League, and we have a Democracy Innovations Project. We are expanding our public communications processes, and I know Dr. Fourlis would love to talk about that. We have expanded the public's ability to participate in our public meetings, but they can mention any opinions, all during public comment on anything before the school board. During our call to the public once a month, they can talk about anything on their mind. So we are expanding public participation, but we are trying to get informative, deliberative dialogue in our meetings, and we are doing this, I think, very interestingly, through our students, who are our most important stakeholders. And I'd be happy to talk about a process we call Hacktivate, which was originated in Mesa, but we are going to use that inquiry process that our students are using to help us better be informed on our decision-making process because, of course, our decisions as a governing board impact students most.
One variable that you mentioned early on was your oversight of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
For our listeners, where does funding come for Mesa Public Schools? Where's the origin of the funding?
That's a really important question. There are many buckets, as we say, of funding. Most of our funding, of course, comes from the state. That is allocated by the state legislature. That's the bulk of our funding. However, because that funding, as far as the Mesa perspective is concerned, our community is not adequate, Oftentimes, our voters have passed bond elections so that we can make sure that our buildings and are learning ready, that we have buses to transport our students, that we have the technology to help them be all they can be in the education process. But we also have to pass an override. An override means that we can provide more funds for our people, the people who care for our children. And that would be a 15% override is currently in Mesa. That allows us to, if you will, think about a 15% gratuity, if you will, beyond what the state provides. And as a result, we have some of the highest salaries for teachers and the highest starting teacher salary in the East Valley.
And then the legislature, they get their money from
Taxes.
Property taxes or sales tax?
Both, actually.
So they're not limited just to...
But it's mostly property tax.
Mostly property tax.
For schools. And we also, of course, have monies that come from the federal government for various programs, and whether it might be for poverty programs, for food programs, but also we apply for a number of grants. Being the largest school district in the state, we are responsible for tens of thousands of children, over 55,000 children. So federal government programs are also funded through our school district.
And federal grants, are those come with oversight?
Absolutely. And
then is there a matching component from the state and the federal to make sure those are sustainable? Or
yes. When we are implementing these grants, for example, we, as a result of the high poverty rate in Mesa, we had ESSER grants, which was the Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief Act passed by the Congress. Mesa Public Schools received almost $250 million, and that was COVID relief. We had huge needs during the COVID period and after. And I know that Dr. Fourlis can talk really in great specificity about those, but those were appropriated through the federal government with oversight by the state, but implemented through our district. And the programming came through the district, had to be approved by the state, but the funding was from the federal government.
Dr. Fourlis, once those funds are depleted, does that leave a gap in the system, or how do we manage that part?
That's a great question. Those funds come to an end very closely, September 30th of 2024. And so we have built our plans to minimize that cliff. However, we know that our budget is 85% people. So we used ESSER funds to provide additional people to support our students through academic recovery due to the pandemic. So we have made some pretty strategic decisions around which staff that we are going to bring into our state-funded maintenance and operation budget. And then we've also had to make some cuts. When we think about those ESSER funds, they came to us in 3 phases. We call those ESSER 1. That was really around personal protection equipment. Then we received ESSER 2 funding, and we spent quite a bit of money on HVAC systems, $75 million to improve the air quality in our schools. And then ESSER 3 was, we spent a lot more on people, instructional coaches. We also bought instructional materials, so it was very instructionally focused. And we have done a great bit of study to find out what is really helping us to improve student learning, and those are what we have brought into our maintenance and operation budget.
And one of the things I'd like to mention is that we were able to just about reinvent our libraries, every school library. We hadn't been able to update our libraries, the books in our libraries to really grab and interest kids. We were able to reinvent the libraries in over our 80 schools. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is the board budgeted $3 million of ESSER funds for musical instruments. When I went to Jefferson Elementary and sat in on the 6th grade boys orchestra program, 3 boys were sharing 1 violin. That meant they couldn't take it home, they couldn't practice. Now, as a result of those ESSER funds, those federal dollars that we spent, we now have an instrument for every kid. We actually had to have our CTE kids build shelving in the Jefferson Elementary orchestra room to now house all those new instruments. It's that sheet music. That's all that kind of really good stuff that we know keeps kids in school, gives them a great sense of belonging. And those orchestra rooms, those choir rooms, those band rooms are alive because we have now instruments for our kids.
How does the governing board and the superintendent function as a team to accomplish the goals of the district?
Well, I think that the most important aspect of the work between the superintendent and the governing board is communication, because we have to remember that individual board members are elected to the board, but decision-making happens only with the majority of the board approval and vote. And our governing board has to live by open meeting law. So they don't have a lot of time to collaborate as we would to solve complex problems. So their problem solving happens in a public meeting. And so it's very important, and I take it very seriously, it is my job to prepare the governing board with the right amount of information, whether it's good or bad. I need to be able to share the successes and the challenges and the problems ahead of us. And so we do that in many different ways. One way is a written communication, a status report that I provide to the governing board in a written form every week. And then I also do weekly check-ins with individual governing board members to share the status of the district, listen to what their concerns and interests are, and try to balance all of that. The other is that we have communication protocols. And our most important communication protocol is very simple, is support one another, not surprises. And so the communication is two-way. And so when a governing board member hears of a hot spot in the district that needs care and attention, they reach out to me so that we can solve it, and then vice versa. So we're always operating under that commitment to support, not surprises.
Sounds like a very healthy environment.
We try.
Yeah.
I'm really excited that you brought these remarkable people.
You can
for you guys
see
to,
why.
well, and for you all to make yourself available to us, it's really, I got to tell you, it's very encouraging.
And if I could add, as I mentioned, that the board provides the vision, but we help establish the goals. And one of the things that cements us is that we want the same thing. And so our focus and our, if you will, our guiding lights are threefold. One is our promise that every child will be served by name, will know their name, and they will be served by strength and need, and we will get them ready for college, career, and community. That is our equity statement, if you will. But also our community, in community meetings with the superintendency and the governing board, established the portrait of a Mesa Public School graduate. What are the attitudes, what are the skills that a student is going to have when they graduate from Mesa Public Schools? And our community said they wanted people graduating from our schools that are ethical, that are inclusive, that are resilient. And our business community said, well, we, in workforce development, we've got to have people who can communicate, who can collaborate, who can think creatively, who can be problem solvers, who are critical thinkers. These are the qualities we need in employees, but I'm going to suggest they're the qualities of people that we just not need in our economy, but in our democracy and in our community, so that they can be community contributors. Because most of our graduates, many of them going to Mesa Community College, remain here in Mesa and choose to raise their families in Mesa. And we are the economic powerhouse of Mesa. We're the biggest employer, and we prepare Mesa for the future, whether it's our democratic future, our social future, our economic future.
I want to weigh in a little bit on the portrait of a graduate, because that's one of the things I really point to when I'm working with my students. So I'm also known as a teacher educator, and I really have felt very proud, honored to be able to work closely with Mesa Public Schools because of the portrait of a graduate, because of your approach to teaching and learning. And the one thing I always point to with the portrait of a graduate is that you will know every learner by name and by strength. So it's not just an area or a outcome of turning out this productive worker, that we're going through this assembly line approach to teaching and learning, that we're deprofessionalizing. I was on a call this morning with some colleagues with a same grant that you and I worked with a couple of years ago. And there's been this real trend to move away from having personal relationships, to know students, to focus on their strengths and not look at them as the same. So talk a little bit about that aspect too. How are you really seeing the efforts of your teachers and your community to really know these learners by strength as individuals?
I'd be happy to talk about the work that our teachers are doing in classrooms. In 50% of our schools, we have a teaming model. And in that teaming model, that means that at least 2 teachers are sharing a roster of students, because we know that the profession that I knew when I joined this profession in 1991 had very different expectations. And those expectations have only grown. And so this idea of one teacher in one classroom is very, very difficult in 2024. So we believe that at least 2 teachers sharing a roster of students have a better opportunity of knowing students by name and specifically knowing their strengths and needs and their passions and their interests so that they do graduate ready for college, career, and community. So we have abandoned this idea that a teacher needs to be a superhero. They need to be able to work within a team to harness the expertise of others so that they can develop and design deeper and more personalized learning for our children. And that also takes into account that we have to know our students also by taking a look at screening assessments, for example, that not all children come to us in the same place, but we are going to teach them those academic standards. And how do we design for learning is very important in our work so that we can deliver upon the portrait of a graduate. We also welcome community members into our schools and say, help us take learning another step and make it more relevant for them. So let's think about the dispositions of an engineer. How is an engineer going to take on this particular problem? And using the academic language of an engineer so that they can start to think about what does critical thinking, problem solving, and innovation look like, not only in a classroom, but start to build pathways to their future. We know that the pandemic really brought some dark times into our community and across our country. And so our job is to instill hope. And we believe that children with a pathway see and feel support in striving towards hope.
And I'd like to add that during the pandemic, we oftentimes had Zoom calls with kids, and they told us that relationships with their teachers were the most important pathway to learning. And when I sit in with kids, whether it's a student advisory group or a No Place for Hate group at Mountain View High School, these students tell me that their relationship with a caring adult is the most important thing that really helps to advance their ability to grow as a human being. And so making sure that we're supporting the caring adults on our campuses, whether it be the janitor, the bus driver, the food and nutrition worker, the counselor, the classroom teacher. Those adults are the people that are shoring up our kids. And it's been very difficult for families. It's been very difficult for kids to come out of this pandemic, much more difficult than we realized. And relationships and bringing in the community. We in Mesa have a community that desperately cares about Mesa Public Schools. It's a point of pride, as is this campus of Mesa Community College. It is these are points of pride in our community. And our community, one of the things I really think that that COVID did was to open us up. We became more vulnerable, and as a result, the community saw where they could fill needs. And this was extremely important when it came to community partnerships and providing opportunities, just not to help our families and our students, but to help them to see a better future. And I know Dr. Fourlis can talk about so many of those community partnerships, but when I go to Red Mountain High School and I go to their STEM night and I see men and women in red polo shirts, hundreds of them, those are Honeywell employees who have been mentoring our kids with their projects, whether they're third graders at Red Mountain Ranch Elementary or high school kids that are pursuing engineering. Those kids with Honeywell employees were selected to send a project to space on the space shuttle. I mean, that's what happens when we can bring caring community adults to the caring adults in our school community to support our kids.
There's a favorite example of that responsiveness to the community and to kids and to your principals, and really doing everything by any means necessary to ensure that kids are going to learn. Can you talk about Kerr?
Oh,
it's my favorite story. I really love it.
Kerr Elementary really changed its trajectory here. The principal brought some animals from her home and just saw how kids reacted. She got an idea, called up Westwood High School, who has one of the best FFA programs. The FFA director said, wait a minute, I know somebody who I think could help you. They now have an agri-science curriculum. And when you talk about the excitement for learning because kids are caring for animals, I took a Lyft ride to the airport, talking with the driver. Turns out she's a mom of a kindergartner. I said, well, how's her experience at Kerr? And she says, she's reading like crazy. And she says, but she's reading so that she can feed a pig. I'm not sure how I think about that. But the whole program at Kerr is designed, whether it's science, math, the arts, English, history, to support agri-science. And those ESSER funds, the board was smart enough to say, we're not going to tell schools what they're going to spend the money on. We're going to ask the schools to tell us what they want to spend money on. So Kerr put together a proposal for an outdoor classroom, better known as a barn. And now Kerr, which started off with chickens, has goats and pigs and roosters and ostriches, and I mean, and their curriculum has exploded in popularity, and as a result, parents are excited about what their kids are learning. We now have expanded that curriculum. It's a K-8 curriculum so that those kids have a direct pipeline to that excellent FFA program and agri-science program at Westwood. And of course, Westwood is a neighboring school to MCC. So I mean, that pipeline of excited learners in a particular career pathway is one of the things that we've been able to do because I think of the ability to fund things through ESSER, but also the community support has been fabulous.
Yeah, that responsiveness. And I know we like to use the word agency when we're talking about, because, you know, I'm in your schools, right? I visit your campuses. I don't just send my students to a campus without meeting with one of your principals and sites and letting them know who I am, what the expectations are, helping them to develop realistic expectations of our students. In fact, I've got a site visit coming up with Edison because the assistant principal reached out. She'd worked with me at Whittier. She'd worked with me at Lehigh, and then she said, hey, let's bring Edison on board. But I know we talk a lot about agency for students, and I think you are talking about a great example of agency for your administrator there, that the adults in the room are not feeling like they're being controlled or micromanaged.
it seems to me you are rehumanizing what school is supposed to be doing. Do you guys see that you are rehumanizing your school district?
Absolutely. And I will tell you that the portrait of a graduate keeps us focused and student-centered. It is what we do. It's why we do it. And so when we continue to talk about building these attitudes and skills in our students, that is the humanization of the learning process and why we go to school. We go to school to build experiences and to build upon experiences. So the humanization is front and center in the decisions that we make. And we are very, very proud of that. And I will also talk to you not just about our students, but the humanization of the teaching profession and the principal profession, our support staff profession. As we have moved to a teaming model, not just in our classrooms, many of our departments are starting to build teams, and so that we're reducing that isolation within departments, and we are seeing job satisfaction increase significantly when teachers are teaching on a team. And again, that is the humanization of being able to build upon strengths of one another.
Did you all originate this? Where does this come from?
So our portrait of a graduate was about 18-month stakeholder engagement process where our governing board in 2017 adopted the Mesa Public School promise to know our students by name, serve them by strength and need, so that they graduate ready for college, career, and community. So then in 2019, we took a hard look and said, okay, what does it mean in 2019 to be ready for college, career, and community? A lot of research about what it looks like, but what does it mean in Mesa Public Schools in the community of Mesa? So we had a very large stakeholder engagement that lasted just about a year, and that generated the attitudes and skills in the portrait of a graduate. And as educators, you can imagine that our first iteration of our language was really dense and way too many words. So what did we do? We took all of that to a group of 11th grade English students at one of our high schools, and they rewrote our portrait of a graduate so the rest of the world could understand what we were talking about. So full circle of being student-centered and human-centered at its best.
Wait a minute. So, and I go to a lot of national conferences, and I've seen that the portrait of a graduate is really taking hold across the country. Are you telling me that it originated and started at Mesa Public Schools?
I can't tell you that it originated and started at Mesa Public Schools. Other districts had done this type of work. This idea of our promise, it's very invisible. We wanted to take the promise and make it very visible to our families and to our students and to our staff. So I was at a conference, and there was an organization that was presenting, and they were walking us through, what do you want your graduates to know and be able to do? And so from that, I started doing a lot of research, and it was the portrait of a graduate. That's what we call it. Some say a portrait of a learner. Some say that it is a portrait of the future. We have called it the portrait of a graduate because we are a K-12 system, and we know that beginning in preschool, our students are starting to make decisions about what their futures are going to look like when they cross that graduation stage. So for us, we coined the term portrait of a graduate, and it has become pretty popular across the country.
Absolutely. It's like they've taken your idea and taken your format, and, just makes me proud. Even more so, I was already really proud.
We were among good colleagues to get started.
Well, and the other thing is that it was really an organic process.
Very.
I mean, I was a community member at the time, and I was actually teaching at ASU and sat in on one of the community meetings at Skyline High School. And I mean, the way in which the district personnel got us in small groups, we talked, made us very comfortable. I mean, so when we talk about community support and the community of caring adults assisting us in our mission, it's because the mission came from the community. And yes, I mean, it was professionals that helped us put this together with, of course, our own children who helped us write it in a manner that everyone could understand. But I think that's why it resonates so much. This was not imposed from above. This came from our community. And as a result, our community has been able to wrap its arms around it and say, yes, and these are the humans that we want to be leading our community and to be engaged in our community. And so that if you're sensing a human-focused approach, I think it's because that is the Mesa way.
I'm out there. I'm in Mesa Public Schools. You're often very gracious to invite me, to various events, and I just am always impressed and in awe of what you're able to do. And school choice is one of the things that is often touted as the way to respond to failing schools. And Arizona is a big voucher state. And the idea behind it is that our public schools aren't offering families educational environments that meet their families' needs. So can you talk a little bit about the opportunities for families in Mesa Public Schools?
I would love to. I will tell you that one of the hallmarks and the legacies of Mesa Public Schools is harnessing parent choice within a very large school district. And I often say, if you can't find it in Mesa Public Schools, it doesn't exist. We have dual language schools. We have STEM immersion schools. We have K-8 schools. We have back to basics traditional schools. We have a Montessori school. We have a school for homeschool children. We have the International Baccalaureate program. We have advanced placement programs. We have a robust career technical education program, and it's only going to get bigger and better as our high schools are building to what we call graduation plus model. We want our students to graduate not just with a good old diploma, but we want it to be a diploma worth having and that it has currency and value, whether they're going to college, career, or joining into a part of the community, serving a mission, serving into the military. So we want those diplomas to have not just meeting the requirements for Mesa Public Schools, we want them to have earned college credit. And I'm so grateful for the relationship we have with Mesa Community College around dual enrollment. We want them to have distinction of seals from the Arizona Department of Education, a seal of biliteracy, a seal of fine arts, a seal of personal finance, of service learning, really building up this robust resume of our students. And we also are working very hard for our students to have internships, job shadowing, and mentorships beginning in about 11th grade so that they can explore careers and they start building that portfolio around what they're going to do next. And so that is all part of our Portrait of a Graduate around finding your future, finding your path. And in fact, that is our new marketing campaign, which is Find What's Inside Mesa Public Schools.
It's pretty clever. I see that. I see what you did there. Find what's inside. Find what's internal inside you. That's pretty cool.
Find your passion. Find your friends. Find the winning team.
Yes.
And I'd like to add that I think we also provide opportunities beyond an academic opportunity for our students. For example, very unique in Mesa Public Schools is the Mesa Youth Creative Agency. And we have 50 students that are being employed as artists. They are learning portrait, they are learning painting, they are learning graphic design, they are being employed by Mesa Public Schools to actually produce works of art. And we are the agency that then brings in the community. We have mentors who are people who have been in these professions who are teaching these students how to be an entrepreneurial artist. And as a result, we have kids who might have lost their way, if you will, who didn't feel they had a sense of belonging in Mesa Public Schools and have found their people. And another way that we've engaged our kids is through Hacktivate, where we are asking our senior students, senior high students, to help us figure out solutions to vexing problems that our schools are facing. And we Hacktivate it. We totally stole it from the city of Mesa. The city of Mesa, Mayor John Giles, was getting students to help him solve the problems that were keeping him up at night. And I said to John, why are my students helping you figure out solutions to your problems? We have plenty of problems in Mesa Public Schools. Why aren't our students, who are our clients, helping us, since the decisions that we make impact them the most? So we brought them together, research-based, data-informed decisions on things like bullying, drugs and alcohol, harassment, violence, school climate. August 13th board meeting coming right up. You will hear their solutions. Each and every high school fully engaged with experts telling us from their perspective, more perspectives, better decisions is my motto as an elected official. And we are empowering our students to not only just have a voice, but to make an impact on the decisions that are being made. And eventually, we're hoping that these students will lead community discussions on many of these same issues so that teachers, parents, and students, as well as administrators, are sitting at the table figuring out solutions to community problems, much like how we came up with the Portrait of a Graduate.
This is great.
This is so exciting. I'm going to be at the board meeting for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so one of the things that I'd like you to talk about is the upcoming board election. And we have, a huge election, coming up. And so can you talk about board elections and what's happening at Mesa Public Schools?
Sure. And when I talk to our legislators from Legislative District 9, Lorena Austin and Seth Blattman, they're telling us that the ballot is going to be 3, maybe 4 pages. So at the very bottom of the ballot will be the school board races, and every community is going to have a school board race. Most school boards have 5 board members. 3 of the board members will be up for election. So if you do the math, that's 60%. And as Dr. Fourlis says, the only way a board acts is as a majority. So truly, the majority of the seats of every school board in this area are up for election, and that would include Mesa. And we have a lot of community members that have come out. They are excited about serving. As a matter of fact, when we had a vacancy, we had 49 community members who applied to fill that vacancy. I think that shows you how robust the support for Mesa Public Schools is. But I do want to remind voters that we call it bottoms up, that they should start at the bottom of the ballot, because local races, starting with school board and city council, then working your way to county government and state government, those elected officials who most impact your life are at the bottom of the ballot. So start bottoms up and be aware of who is running for your elected school board positions.
Well, that is a great segue to an upcoming civic event that Mesa Community College is hosting in collaboration with the Civic Engagement Center, the Educators Rising Club, where I'm an advisor. And we've also reached out to Mesa Public Schools to help us to inform the public about the people running for office. So on September 17th, here at Mesa Community College in the Navajo Room, we're going to have a forum, and we've invited all of those folks who are running for governing board here in Mesa to come and share their views, to let the voters and the community know what they value and what they prioritize in regards to public education. And then we can make some decisions. We are aware of what's important to us individually as a community, and we have an opportunity to hear and then to determine how the vision of those running for those 3 seats is fulfilling our vision of what we want for our school district.
What you all are doing is contagious. It's exciting. It's inspirational. It's why people like myself walked away from the private sector at a later in life to become an educator. Can you give us a little bit of details about the voting real quick? Like, do you have to be a citizen of Mesa, obviously?
And yeah, you must,
registered voter.
You have to be a registered voter.
Now,
but
is this along party lines at all?
no, this is a nonpartisan race. School board races are all nonpartisan. And I do want to remind voters that just because you live in Mesa does not mean you're a Mesa Public School District voter. School districts existed before cities did. And so as a result, Mesa Public Schools serves citizens in Chandler, in Tempe, and not all Mesa citizens live in the Mesa Public School District. But for the most part, if you live in District 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the city of Mesa, you are in the Mesa School District. So be careful. But no matter where you live, you are eligible to vote in your local school district. I often have people in like Leisure World who are not part of the incorporated part of the city of Mesa say, well, I can't vote in the school election. Oh, yes, you can. You are in the district. You are an eligible voter. And so Friendship Village, for example, that's right down the road here, Friendship Village is in Tempe. But it is, those folks at Friendship Village are a Mesa Public School District voter. So we look forward to their participation in our election.
Let's go around the table. Final thoughts.
Well, I am very, very, again, excited by the work that you're doing, so much so that I have made schools within your district professional development schools. I think you're really exemplifying the best in teaching and learning. And so my students who are on their path to become educators are able to see excellence. They're able to see teaming. They're able to see students with agency. And just here with you, I've known of you both for some time. I'm just continue to be energized and excited by the work that you're doing. So I really want to say thank you for coming and giving of your time today.
I would like to say that we love our community. We are here for our community. And we are deeply committed to producing the citizens that we know that this community needs, and that we want every one of our children to thrive and to be great contributors so that public education continues to stay alive and thrive.
And I just want to thank you for this opportunity. It is my honor and a privilege to serve on the Mesa Public School Governing Board. As a short-term resident of Mesa, I've been here for 45 years. And having been a teacher in the district and having had my 2 daughters graduate, to me, it is so important that our kids be ready to seize their opportunities. And I hope that through this podcast that you understand that we are readying our students for luck. People aren't lucky. They're ready for luck. And no matter what interests a student, no matter what motivates them, no matter what engages them, in Mesa Public Schools, they can find their passion, they can find their future. And we'd encourage people to look inside Mesa Public Schools. We are readying people to seize their opportunities.
Dr. Andi Fourlis, Superintendent, Mesa Public Schools. Marcie Hutchinson, President of Mesa Public Schools Governing Board. My co-pilot, Dr. Tawn. This is the most exciting podcast in education I've done in years. I can't even begin to tell you. And I want to thank you for making yourselves available for us today for this discussion. In my dad's language, we say, Aya aski galia hiliga wanta wanta donadogo ha. Take care of each other out there because we're all we have. Thank you.